Good afternoon, my dear brothers and sisters. I am Eremenciana from Zimbabwe. This afternoon, I'm presenting on the roles and responsibilities of the Secular Franciscan Council. I'll start by looking at leadership as taught by Jesus. So often in the world, leadership is seen as being about positions, status, and power. And when that happens, it is abused. It becomes used for the benefit of the so-called leader. Nothing could be further from the model that Jesus lived and taught in Matthew 23. Jesus took the Pharisees to task for exactly this kind of behavior. They exploited their leadership to gain celebrity and a place of honor and the best seats in the house. Jesus turned this on its head and declared, "The greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted." The role of leader is not to save themselves, but to save the people they lead. Leadership in the kingdom is a position of humility, not power and status. Leadership requires the humility of a servant heart. As Jesus and his disciples were preparing to share the Passover, there was no servant to wash their feet, to remove the dirt of their journey and refresh them. John 13. This could have been a huge social blunder, but it would have been embarrassing. It was also beneath the dignity of the disciples to wash each other's feet. It was beneath them to serve the others in this way. It was even less appropriate for Jesus as their master, teacher, and host to do so. Now, Jesus knew that he was not simply their teacher, but the Son of God, and that all things in creation had been made through him. John 1. Jesus chose humility and took the place of the servant, one of the lowest ranks in a Jewish society, and washed their feet. He asked them, "Do you understand what I've done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I, then your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you." Brothers and sisters, from what the teacher, our master, our Lord is taught, we ought to see the good in others. We ought to do good to others, just as St. Francis of Assisi saw the good in his brother Bernard and the simplicity of brother Leo. Having looked at the model that we get from Jesus, I'm going to look at why we have roles and responsibilities defined. The roles and responsibilities are clearly defined for a number of reasons. They are to empower people to do better. The guidelines help the leaders to know where to start and where to end. And once you know what you are supposed to do, you strive to do it well. Also, the roles and responsibilities defined help the council to be more focused, and it also creates order. The roles and responsibilities defined boosts operational efficiency by reducing confusion and idleness. Likewise, the roles and responsibilities of the Secular Franciscan Council are clearly defined in the rule, the General Constitution, and the national statutes. What is a council? A council is more of a team. For a council to be effective, there is need for teamwork, as explained by Caroline and Mayara in their first talk. There is need for members to respect each other, empower each other, collaborate with each other, and support one another. We could reflect on the picture why these people are holding the different pieces of the puzzle in pairs. As a council, we must bring our different talents, our different efforts, combine them, and we produce the best. I'm also going to look at the qualities of a good leader. A good leader must be very good in communication. A good communicator listens, responds, and engage in dialogue. He must also be in communion with the church. Must also be committed to the growth of others and open to learning. He must be compassionate, fair, and strong. Sometimes we have members of the council who cannot take into criticism or correction. Once that's done, they are asking for resignation. Council members must be strong. They must make also informed decisions. Servants, following the example of Jesus Christ, as we have heard in the introduction. A member of the council must be available, capable, have knowledge and experience, perpetually professed. The leader must have true love for and a deep sense of belonging to the OFS. Must have a marked sense and spirit of service. Must have a concrete availability of time, mind, and heart for the fraternity. Must put the fraternity before everything else. Must be strong enough to cope with the problems of the fraternity. We'll now look at the different specific roles of different council members. We'll start by the roles and responsibilities of the minister, as they are clearly articulated in the General Constitution, Article 51. While firmly upholding the core responsibility of the council to animate and to guide the fraternity, the minister, as the primary person responsible for the fraternity, is expected to make sure that the directions and the decisions of the council are put into practice and will keep the council informed about what he or she is doing. The minister has to call, to preside at, and to direct the meetings of the fraternity and the council, to convoke every 3 years the elective chapter of the fraternity, having heard the council on the formalities of the convocation. The minister, he or she, has to prepare the annual report to be sent to the council at the higher level after it has been approved by the council of the fraternity. The minister has to represent the fraternity in all its relations with the ecclesiastical and civil authorities. When the fraternity requires a juridical personality in the civil order, the minister becomes, when possible, its legal representative. To request, with the consent of the council, the pastoral and fraternal visit at least once every 3 years. The minister has to put into effect those acts which the Constitution refer to his or her competence. Although the minister has specific roles and responsibilities, he has to consult with the council all the time. It is the council and the minister, not the minister and the council. We now move on to the vice minister. Article 52. The vice minister has to collaborate in a fraternal spirit and to support the minister in carrying out his or her specific duties. The vice minister has to exercise the functions entrusted by the council or by the assembly or the chapter. He or she has to take the place of the minister in both duties and responsibilities in order of absence or temporal impediment. The vice minister has to assume the functions of the minister when the office remains vacant. So that is why it is important that the vice minister supports the minister, because when the minister is absent, the vice minister has to take up the roles of the minister. We now go on to the roles and responsibilities of the secretary. Article 52.2 of the General Constitution. The secretary has to compile the official acts of the fraternity and of the council and to assume that they are sent to and to assure that they are sent to their respective proper recipients. The secretary has to see to the updating and preservation of the records and the register, noting admissions, professions, deaths, withdrawals and transfers from the fraternity. Each local fraternity is to have at least a register of enrollments, admissions, professions, transfers, dates, and every other important annotations relative to the individual member, the register of minutes of the council and the register of admissions. The secretary has to provide for the communication of the more important facts to the various levels and, if appropriate, to provide for their dissemination through the mass media. We'll now look at the roles and responsibilities of the formatter. Article 52.3. The formatter has to coordinate, with the help of the other members of the council, formative activities of the fraternity. He or she has to instruct and enliven the inquirers during the time of initiation, the candidates during the period of initial formation, and the newly professed. He or she has to inform the council of the fraternity prior to professions concerning the suitability of the candidate for a commitment to live according to the role. The work of formation is not for the formatter alone, but the responsibility of the whole council. We'll go on to look at the roles and responsibilities of the treasurer or the bursar. We refer to General Constitution, Article 52.4. The treasurer is to guide diligently the contribution received, recording each receipt in the appropriate register with the date on which it was given, the name of the contributor or the one from whom it was collected, The treasurer has to record this in the same register the items of expense, specifying the date and the purpose in conformity with the directions of the Fraternity Council. The treasurer has to render an account of his or her administration to the assembly and to the council of the fraternity according to the directions of the Fraternity Council. We will lastly look at the roles and responsibilities of the spiritual assistant. I'm sure Father Pedro did justice to this one. Article 85 of the General Constitution says, the Holy See gave the responsibility of the spiritual assistant of the OFS to the First Order and the Third Order Regular because they belong to the same family. Canon 303. The spiritual assistant is a member of the Fraternity Council with the right to vote, with the exception of financial matters and voting in elective chapter. He gives spiritual assistance. The spiritual assistant accompany and collaborate in formation of the brothers and sisters. He also does interviews in the local fraternities. The spiritual assistant guarantees fidelity to the charism of St. Francis. I will now go on to look at the different councils at different levels, starting with the local fraternity. The local fraternity is the heart of the order. It is the heartbeat of the order, so if the heart is functioning well, we praise the Lord because the body is healthy. Unfortunately, if the heart is not well, the body is sick and we have an ailing body, which is the order. The council has to collaborate with each other to bring about life and health. According to the General Constitution, Article 50, the council members has to promote the initiatives necessary for fostering fraternal life, for improving the human Christian and Franciscan formation of its members, and for sustaining their witness and commitment in the world. It has to make concrete and courageous choices from among the numerous activities possible in the field of the apostolate. The council has to decide on the acceptance and admission to profession of new brothers and sisters, and this must be done collegially, giving feedback to the fraternity. The council has to establish a fraternal dialogue with members in particular difficulties and to adopt consequence measures. It also has to receive the request for withdrawal and to decide on the suspension of members from the fraternity. It has to decide on the establishment of sections or groups in conformity with the General Constitution and the national statutes. The council has to decide on the destination of available funds and in general to deliberate on matters concerning financial management and economic affairs of the fraternity. It has to assign duties to the councillors and to other professed members. The council has to request from the competent superiors of the First Order and the TOR suitable prepared religious as assistants. It has to request for an elective chapter after every 3 years. Having looked at the duties and responsibilities of the council, we need to reflect on what we are doing in our local fraternities as a council to uphold the charism of St. Francis. In order for the council members to be more effective, they need support from the fraternity members. I will now look at the regional council. The regional fraternity is the link between the local fraternity and the national fraternity. Article 62.2 of the General Constitution says the regional council has to prepare the celebration of an elective chapter. It has to promote, animate, and coordinate the life and activities of the OFS and its insertion into the local church within the regional area. It has to detail the action plan of the OFS with the region according to the directives of the National Council and in collaboration with it, and to publicizing that program to the local fraternities. The Regional Council has to communicate the directives of the National Council and to the local church to the local fraternities. It has to provide for the formation of those responsible for animation. The Regional Council has to offer to the local fraternities activities which support their formative and operative needs. It has to discuss and approve the annual report to the National Council. The Regional Council has to schedule, when circumstances recommend so, the fraternal visit to the local fraternities even if it is not requested. It has to make decisions regarding the use of available funds and in general to deliberate on matters regarding the financial management and economic affairs of the regional fraternity. The Regional Council has to have, before its term of office is finished, the regional fraternity financial and real estate of situation audited either by an expert who is not a member of the council or by the fraternity's board of examiners. It has to perform such duties as indicated by the Constitution or necessary to achieve its own aims. Having looked at the responsibilities and roles of the Regional Council, it is important to constantly remind oneself that the duty to be in the council is to serve our brothers and sisters, to bring the charism of St. Francis to the world by the way we serve. We need to be exemplary leaders who preach what they live. Let's look at the National Fraternity Council. Article 66 of the General Constitution says the council has to prepare the celebration of the national elective chapter according to its own statutes. It has to make and to know and to promote secular Franciscan spirituality in the whole area of its own national fraternity.